Hi, a very good evening to all of you. Today we are going to see a bar graph, and this bar graph shows the results of a survey about people's coffee and tea buying and drinking habits in 5 Australian cities. Now, we can see the coffee and tea buying and drinking habits in 5 cities in Australia. The cities are Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Hobart. So we can say that the percentage of city residents in this vertical axis, and in the horizontal axis, we can see the 5 cities. And those who have the habit of buying fresh coffee in 4 weeks, those who bought instant coffee in 4 weeks, and went to cafe for coffee in the or tea in the last 4 weeks. So we have seen these three types of people who have the habit of these things. Right now, we can see that the habit of buying, habit of going to cafe is more in most cities except in Adelaide. In Adelaide, buying instant coffee is popular than going to cafe. Now, we can see the second popular thing in almost all the cities is buying instant coffee, and the third, the least popular, is buying fresh coffee. Now we can see this is the only city with an exception. Rest all cities we can see a similar trend, and we can see the highest number of cafe goers here in Melbourne, and the highest number of instant coffee drinkers are there, buyers are there in Hobart. The highest number of fresh coffee buyers are there in Sydney. So this is all we can see here. Now, if we see in detail, we can see the introduction here. Yes, we'll cross-check the answer here. The proportion of buyers and drinkers of coffee and tea in 5 Australian cities excuse me. In 5 Australian cities, which is calculated based on their habit in the past month, is depicted in the given graph. So based on the habit in the past month, 4 weeks past month, based on their habit in the past month, the proportion of buyers and drinkers of coffee and tea in 5 Australian cities are calculated. And this is depicted in the given bar graph. So we have not said it's a result of the survey, but we have said it is calculated. So it is a study. It is indirectly said it's a study. Now, what we can say in general, it's clear that the rate of those who visit a cafe for having either tea or coffee is higher than those who bought fresh or instant coffee. So it's said that the rate of those who visit a cafe, so we are writing in present tense just because it's a habit. Habit has to be written in present tense. Please don't write in past tense, because if you see this thing in past tense, because this habit is derived based on this particular trend. So they studied. It was a survey. The survey lasted for 4 weeks. So 4 weeks they conducted how many people from Sydney went to the cafe, how many people from Sydney bought instant coffee, how many people from Sydney bought fresh coffee. Based on the studies, they have calculated some sorts of proportions. and this is the habit. So this is just the trend. So actually, this has to be written in present tense and not in past tense. So even if you see this thing in past tense, by, bought, this thing is over. And based on these studies, they have derived the habit, the proportion of habits. Oh, so habit has to be written in present tense. So we are writing in present tense. Okay, so so I have a correction here, those who buy. Okay. Now it's clear from the chart that the habit of going to the cafe is more popular in cities, except Adelaide. Except in Adelaide, you can see it's going to cafe is more popular. You can see that very clearly. In this city, it means Adelaide, the rate of those who do so is just under a half of its total population and under a half of its total population. So if there are 1,000 people there in Adelaide, less than 500 are have the habit of going to cafe. They might also have the habit of buying instant coffee. Some of them might also have the habit of having fresh coffee. So this 1,000 people, majority of them buy instant coffee. Just around 1% less they go to cafe, and very negligible proportion they go and buy fresh coffee. This is what you can see. Meanwhile, in all the other cities, the average proportion of city dwellers who have this habit is almost 60. So we can see that the average proportion in all the other cities, 1, 2, 3, 4, except Adelaide, it's around 55 to 56, 61, 62, 63, 64, 63. So we can say an average of around 60 people, 60% of people in the cities, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Hobart have the habit of going to the cafe to drink either a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. However, the city in which the instant coffee buying is most popular is Hobart. So it is not the number one. Adelaide is not the number one because since it has more number of instant coffee buyers than the people who go to the cafe. The city is not the number one in instant coffee buying. It's Hobart. It's around 54%. Nearly 55% of its population have this habit, which is around 3% more than Brisbane's. Yes, nearly 3%. In Melbourne and Sydney too, where most fresh coffee buyers are there, the trend of buying instant coffee is popular. So the trend of buying instant coffee is popular in Sydney and Melbourne too, where we have most fresh coffee buyers. We have most fresh coffee buyers in Sydney and Melbourne. There too, we can see a significant number of instant coffee buyers. So the proportions are given there. In these cities, I have to, in these cities, the proportions of those who buy fresh coffee are 43 and 44 respectively, whereas it is It is the least in both Adelaide and Brisbane, whereas it is the least in both Adelaide and Brisbane. So we can say in Adelaide and Brisbane, it is the least. So we can say it is 35%, under 35%. We have left Hobart because it is not that much significant there. So this particular data is exempted from this thing. So all those relevant figures, all the relevant figures are included. All the figures can't be included in any of the bar graphs. So we have given a very clear picture here. So an introduction, an overview, and 2 paragraphs. Thank you.